morning. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 20th Ignite CDA board meeting. Call this meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So stepping in for Scott as he's caught in traffic. He'll be here shortly, hopefully. We will stand for any public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent calendar. It's usually, we're just going to approve the consent calendar, or do you guys have any?
No, so we're going to approve the consent calendar, then we're going to have a separate report through finance.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the consent calendar for the October board meeting.
Second.
All approved?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. All approved? Okay, did you want to go into the finance?
Let's do the presentation first, then we'll get to reports after that.
Okay, thank you. Presentation, the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership Initiative. Kiki Miller, or do you want somebody else to come first?
Do you know where it is? Yeah, so I'll share screen. And click with the mouse. Okay? Yes. I'm Kiki Miller. This is so odd to be on this side of the podium. It's actually just as scary either way. I wanted to talk to you today about the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership, and I hope you got information in your packet that gave you links to the website where all of the work that we've done in the last about 9 months is housed. This is kind of how, this is just a brief overview. We're going to have some folks share different pieces of this and try to get through this in about 15 minutes. There's a lot more information that's coming, but we felt it was really important for this group to kind of get up to speed and have a chance to ask a few questions if you wanted to about what's going on. So this is kind of how the housing issue isn't one that any of us are unfamiliar with. We know what kind of problems and issues we have going on, but this is how this whole organization started. I ended up dealing with a lot of civic organizations, groups around town, started talking to planners and found that most of all of them were talking with each other, trying to deal with answering questions from their constituents on how we're going to deal with this housing issue. So that was kind of the birthplace of how this organization started. There's a working group that's comprised of the city planners from all the jurisdictions and elected, and is elected in a planner from the county as well. What we're currently doing, so we've been working, and the working group meets every other week with an advisory group that gives direction to that working group meeting 2 weeks later. So what we are currently focused on is what had happened to the inventory of housing that we have during the pandemic, and that's the solutions we need to come up with. We know we are proving now that we have more retirees coming in. We had a national shift in remote workers, all of the things that you see here that aren't new news to what happened in our housing market. The work we've done to date includes coming up with a survey that we sent out to the community to say what priority do you want us to focus on in regards to how we tackle these issues. We've been working on open space preservation, collaboration, and there's going to be an article coming out in the paper that's going to kind of summarize where we're at with that in the last few weeks. So that'll be out in the next couple of days. So you'll be able to get up to speed on that one. All of these articles I'm talking about are linked on the KMPO website. And when we end this presentation, there'll be a screen for you to share that anyone can go to that and see everything that we have done, agendas, working group notes, the rosters, and the recorded videos of the advisory group meetings. So I'm going to have Bob come up here, I think Bob was next, and talk a little bit about the toolkit, which is one of the things that the working group, with direction from the advisory group, has been focusing on.
I'm Bob Seal, I'm Community Development Director for the City of Post Falls. Nope, none of these. Did you change it? I'll just leave it here. Okay, this looks close enough to what I've received. All right, so we have, as part of this partnership, we have started looking at various avenues in terms of trying to develop an idea around a housing toolkit. And kind of some of that we've been able to look at from a city hall perspective, we feel that there are ways to review our short-term rental ordinances, looking at Airbnbs or VRBOs, and how to work on managing that. Currently, Coeur d'Alene is working on their own. In Post Falls, we do not quite have a number of Airbnbs that we need to jump on it immediately. However, it is something that we do recognize that will need to be addressed. A lot of those short-term rentals take up the ability to rent these houses out on a long-term basis. Anecdotally, my neighbor has a short-term rental, and it's rotated over and over again. Whereas, more often, in order to help with providing affordable housing of some form, being able to keep these on the market on a regular, annual basis is a point that needs to be addressed. Other ideas that we have been presented or have looked at is the idea of a limited equity co-op, where a lower income individual could buy in at certain shares. It helps to keep prices down, potentially, if you're buying into an overall development. I know that Spokane recently had one open up in the lower South Hill area. We've talked about and seen examples of membership developments, and that may be things along the lines of say, Kootenai Health or the school districts, being able to, can they create developments in which that provides housing for their employees? There's a private development support. Sandpoint recently saw development begin to take shape, where they have carved out lower income buy-in possibilities, so that it, and local individuals can buy. There are strictly set aside for local individuals to buy within that development. How do we get this tough to continue, and how do we get it created? It's more along the lines of, within the toolkit, we're trying to create we're trying to find these ideas, bring them to one single location, so that if there are individuals out there looking to create something, this at least provides them with an idea, a framework, and some kind of basis to start from. That's how we're trying to incorporate that into that framework. That is something that at the city level we'll look to try and include within our comprehensive plans to encourage these types of developments, where and if possible include it within zoning amendments. I know that one of the questions that was asked previously was whether or not the city of Post Falls, or how urban renewal agencies can help to support the creation of workforce housing. Looking at the city of Post Falls, currently we have various plans that are open and active. However, there is no provision for the creation of workforce housing or housing in general within those plans. If that became a key point, we would be able to go back to the agency and look to revise some of these plans, but that has not come up as a discussion point at this time. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Alan now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for letting us tag team you guys here today. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. A lot of us have been doing this for a long time. I want to read some headlines to you right now, just real quick. Growth puts squeeze on number of available rentals in area. Report says Idaho has housing woes. Officials look for ways to ease growth burden. Forum focuses on need for more affordable housing. These are all headlines that could be in the papers today. These are actually headlines from 1992. That's when the state legislature kind of woke up a little bit and formed the Idaho Housing Trust Fund. Unfortunately, that trust fund has never been funded. There's never been anything really put into place to fund it. So it's just sat stagnant. So why do I bring this up? Well, I bring this up only from the standpoint that at least we have a starting point. We do have a statute on the Idaho books, a place to get started, but we do need to find a funding source. We need to have the governor appoint a board and get started on this. So for no reason other than just to bring that to your attention, that we do have that starting point, but we do have some work to do. to figure it out. And in the last 30 years, it's come up, it's gone away, it's come up again. It's not been very popular in the funding sources, but it is something that we do have a starting point on. Next slide here, I just want to talk a little bit about what we call these CHDOs. These are organizations that are available in Idaho that have been started. The one that I did some research on is the LEAP Charities. And what this organization has done is they've formed a partnership where they own land. It's funded by private and business organizations who put the money in. LEAP then buys the land, builds a house, and then sells the house in a partnership with the person who's actually buying it. So 5, 10 years down the road, when that person sells that house, then money goes back into the fund, the housing trust for LEAP. And just to give you an idea, housing project down in the Boise area, those houses were selling for about $200,000 a piece. So this is something that's a little more affordable than what we're seeing here in Kootenai County. But again, it comes back to private partnership where the foundations and businesses, individuals donated money to this organization to get it started and get it off the ground. Another organization or another process that's done is the housing authorities, and I checked into the Spokane Housing Authority. Well, now, a housing authority is really more of a government entity. It's funded generally by HUD or government tax dollars, and this is an organization that then just goes out and buys property, buys apartments, builds apartments, buys houses, and then turns around and rents them out to people who qualify. These are just some of the vehicles that we do have at our fingertips now. It's going to take some work. I'm not sure where you guys fit in, not sure where we fit in, but together maybe we can start a dialogue that can come up with some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So one of the things that we're doing is looking at possible housing management structure. So Alan just talked about some of the options that we're looking at. And in partnership with the advisory group, we want to make sure that we are going in the right direction. And so we've been exploring different things. So the CHDOs, it's CHODO is kind of the short for that. So CHODOs and CBDOs, which is community-based development organizations, are some of those groups that can receive some funds from HUD. They can receive home funds and they can receive community development block grant funds. So those are kind of opportunities for them. Locally, we have the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance, PAHA, and so they used to be a CHODO. They're no longer that, but they have the ability to become one again and to receive those funds. Habitat for Humanity qualifies as a CBDO, and they're forming a land trust on one of their new projects. They're building townhouses, and we were able to provide them with some CDBG grant funds for that. So those are some examples. We also have opportunities through United Way. So locally, they don't have the housing or the land trust model, but they do nationally. So they could bring that here. And then also CDAID has been exploring opportunities to provide kind of more of that membership housing for some of the hospitality service workers. So we're looking at that as kind of one example and asking the advisory group, do you like us to kind of just focus on what we have? Do we grow that? Do we work with these groups that already can build housing or expand upon what they're doing? Or do we look at forming a new kind of more of an umbrella group, either an alliance or kind of a regional housing board that could work with the CHODOs, work with other developers, kind of provide recommendations to each of the jurisdictions on what they see we maybe need to do for code amendments, other things like that, and kind of having it just kind of function in that manner, kind of pulling things together. Or looking at the housing authority like Alan talked about. The examples he provided were more HUD-based. There's also examples like in Blaine County where they don't deal with any HUD-funded projects, and they can do more of I guess they can even do market rate housing if they wanted to, but they can do the workforce, they can do the achievable housing, they can do affordable, they can do them on kind of these different levels. And their funding is actually kind of an administrative fund coming from managing deed-restricted properties. So there's different things to kind of look at for each of those. The benefit or the unique thing with a housing authority is that they do have the ability, like urban renewal districts, to do the bonding, so they can do that for funding. And that would be following a structure that's provided for in state code if we were to form one for the region. They can also be city-specific or regional. So we are asking our advisory group to weigh in on this. We kind of provided this at the last advisory group meeting, and we have not sent out the survey yet because we kind of realized as a working group, like, this is a lot to digest. We need to have a better understanding ourselves and then provide more pros and cons lists to be able to have them provide educated response back to us. And so we did, though, at the last meeting, provided some overview. We'll be doing that again at our next meeting on Monday. And then we did ask them at the last meeting on live polling, how should we get your response? Should we have your representative or your executive director provide a response? Should we have your executive team or your full board of directors provide a response on this, or should it be your full membership? And the majority said it should be the executive director or the representative on this partnership. So we're going to be proceeding with that, but we need to do some more education first. And I will hand it back over to Kiki to kind of wrap it up, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end.
We tried to get through this in a very short period of time. Want to touch base on, you've heard about the housing assessment that the University of Idaho is doing. It's funded by PAHA, Avista Foundation, and CDA EDC. That's scheduled to be out at the end of October. It might be a little bit late, but there's been hundreds and hundreds of survey responses throughout industry. It's very comprehensive, very concise, and I think it's going to give us the tool we need to say this isn't just anecdotal stories of what's really happening, but it's real-time facts on what's going on in the housing market in Kootenai County. So it will have the toolkit that Bob spoke about, each of those items that we are working on, we've been doing concurrently to this study, so it will have some solutions as part of its summary conclusions in that study. So that's an important one to watch. What's next for us is our priority is to do the education Hillary talked about with our advisory group members so that they understand when we send them the survey on which type of housing management structure do you want us to pursue regionally, they will have an educated response on what the pros and cons are. So we're continuing to do all of these items. Touch base quickly, there is a school subcommittee that's formed. It has a whole different set of issues, but it's reporting back to the major group. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there's an open space group that was our initial number one priority that is kind of wrapping up right now. So this is some of the entities that are in there. There's more that are added, but all of this information is who the advisory group members are there. It's a very broad base and diverse group. And this is the website. KNPO is not the leader of this organization. They were just the organization that I asked if they would house our information because this is not a funded group. And so they were willing to volunteer to keep our information there so the public could view it at any time. So that's where we're at, and it was very important for us that we all showed up here because it's important that we do this work regionally and come up with real solutions that are things that we can all incorporate together. So if we have another minute for questions, any of us would be happy to take them. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kiki,
Kiki.
Alan, Bob, and Hillary. Thank you. Do you want to take it over from here?
Sure, thanks. Thanks very much. Questions?
Well, I guess I would just comment that, interesting what Alan said about, back in the 90s or something. I don't want to be a negative Nelly on it, but I feel like, a lot of the information and the issues and all of that, it's like, oh yeah, it's a new group of folks who are taking a new look at the same old stuff that we've been wrestling with, and because some, dealing with seniors who are dealing with, worked at Habitat, and oh yeah, we already knew we've got lots of seniors and some tough stuff coming, but I guess, and it sounds like maybe at some point it'll drill down, but I guess wondering, is there hope for that, if you got a family member, or friend, or client, or something who's really in desperate shape, yeah, well, when is there some hope where, yeah, I can tell them where, okay, this is where you go, and maybe you can get actually an affordable house or rent or something, I guess on the practical side, and I don't know if there's an answer.
Yeah, sure. Any further questions?
I just say real quick, I mean, I can, personally, I support what you're doing. I think you've done some great work, and there's probably some things we can do in the future to help you. with this. I guess that remains to be seen. There's probably some things we can do as time goes on and this gets refined a little more. I remember back in 2006, back when I was the chairman at the Planning Commission, and we were looking, you know, really seriously at affordable housing and looking at what they did in Blaine County in some areas, because they had these concerns then. It's been going on for a while. The Great Recession hit, and that kind of solved the affordability problem. And so then it kind of got shelved until several years ago, and it's come back around again, even bigger and worse than it was in 2006. So thanks for the great work you're doing.
Very true. There's definitely a need. I just hope we can help out. It'd be great. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, reports. Finance Committee. Commissioner Arman.
So in our Finance Committee meeting last week, we discussed a little bit about some of the issues that we're starting to see as far as how our bookkeeping person, Leslie Gorley, is booking certain issues that are associated with the development out at the Atlas site and how we are going to incorporate those into the future audits. And through our discussion, it was very enlightening, but what we came to an understanding is there was maybe some things we needed to get resolved. So Sarah has volunteered with her expertise to kind of work with Tony and with the Welsh Comer Group and everybody else to try to resolve how we're going to interface with these. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah for her comments on how we're going to look at this in the future.
Thank you, Mick. So actually yesterday we did have a Teams meeting with Welch Comer, me, Leslie, our accountant, and Tony, and we made some great progress on our conversation about the complexity over the Atlas Mill site and what we're required to do for an audit. I think one of the things we talked about at the Finance Committee meeting was that the statements that we approve every month are really operating statements. They're statements that tell us how we're doing every day or every month according to our budget, and they're meant for us to be used to manage and help manage and direct the organization. The work that I'm helping Leslie with and working towards with Scott is preparing reporting statements, and so they're not meant to be used for operations. They're meant to be used for, you know, a larger picture, not a day-to-day management side. And so part of what came up during the Finance Committee meeting is, do we approve the September financials at this meeting, or do we wait and approve them as part of the audit? And my suggestion was that we approve the operating statements as presented by Tony as a draft prior to the final audit, and we're basically approving them from an operational standpoint. And then when we approve the audit, we would be approving the audit report and the final numbers of the year. Does that make sense to everybody?
It's a good solution.
Okay, so that's, I volunteered to explain it because that's my world. I live in it. I'm living it right now in my regular job. So I just want to make sure that everyone was understood and comfortable with that. We didn't want to just leave it on the consent calendar without kind of explaining that. And hopefully we can make this an ongoing process where we're approving the September operational statements as a draft, you know, as a draft of our final year-end statements, which would be finalized when we approve the audit or accept the audit. Does that make, yeah? Yeah.
Then monthly, they'll be marked as draft then, or?
Perfect.
So I'm going to make a motion to accept the finance reports as presented, operational reports as presented by Tony from in our email.
As a draft.
As a draft. As a draft.
I would second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Is Steve on Zoom?
Yeah, he said
Steve's on
aye.
Zoom.
Must be.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steve.
Wasn't sure.
Is that it, Mr. Arman?
That's it. That's my report.
Next report, Commissioner Jordan for parking.
I don't have anything new to report this time, Mr. Chairman. I can tell you that we're trying to put the numbers together, and hopefully by the next meeting, I can get you a fiscal year-end report on our parking revenues in comparison to last year, and what we made this year, but they're looking pretty good this year. We've always had kind of a cumbersome system for reporting revenues, and we're trying to make some improvements on that.
All right,
Thank you.
you bet. Next is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, can you put up that, never mind, not right now. So first item, Mr. Chairman, is Midtown Ventures LLC project DDA extension. Just as a little background on this issue, Ignite CDA entered a disposition and development agreement, which is called a DDA, with Midtown Ventures LLC, which is a developer, on October 19th, 2020, with a planned closing date of August 2021. This DDA has been amended 4 times, each time granting a time extension for closing on the sale of the property. The agency's intent was to close on the property sale by the end of fiscal year 2021, which was September 30th, 2021. The 4th amendment to this DDA provides a closing date of October 22nd, 2021, which is this coming Friday. The development team has stated that they will not be able to close on the property by October 22nd. So I felt it prudent to invite the developer back to visit with the board so that he and they can explain kind of the issues that they're facing and possibly seeking a further extension on the DDA. So with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Butler up to visit with the board.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, John.
Thank you for letting me be on the agenda. I'm here today to ask for an extension on the DDA till March 31st of 2022. I appreciate your guys' patience. There's been a lot of things that have happened in the last year and a half that's been kind of out of my control. But I want to explain to you some things that are going on right now, and I hope that we can move forward. About 5 months ago, we completed our plans. We sent it out for bid. We got a number that we were working with. We went back to the architect and the contractor for some value engineering. Normally, when you do value engineering, you think the price is going to come back down. Well, about 2 weeks before we were supposed to transfer the property, that bid went up by $1.6 million, which I met with Tony, and Tony's been great. I appreciate all the help and stuff he's given me, but what has happened, I went over the bids with the contractor, and it's just it's a workforce problem right now. There were several trades that didn't even bid on it, and in most cases, we only had one bid on each item. They're just too busy. They don't have time. So I've been talking to some contractors, not just Gino, the one that we have right now, but other ones. They feel that in the spring it's going to loosen up. Towards the end of the year, in the wintertime, people aren't really anxious to go out getting started on a project. So we feel that in the spring we're going to be able to, with some retooling of the plan, not the looks of the elevation, but retooling of the plan and a fresher look. In the next couple of months, we'll complete that and get it out for bid again. So it'll be a better project in the spring for somebody to look at. It really comes down, I mean, the workforce right now, you're probably hearing this all over. There's just, I mean, you talk about workforce housing and stuff, and that is a big concern. But it has hurt. COVID, of course, you know what's happened there. It's affected, I'm not even going to go there. Our financing is in place. That will still be in place in the spring. The appraisals have been done on the property. I've talked to I can get you a letter from the bank if you want that. We're golden there. I don't want to give up on this project because I really do feel that what we're going to do there in Midtown, and with the addition of the junk building, we bought the junk building so we could do something for that entire block. In the meantime, we've had several offers to sell that junk building. I don't want to do that because of what I think can be a really great addition to Midtown, from a commercial aspect to housing. And incidentally, if we were going to do the project and spend $1.6 million, there's just, the rents can only go up so high. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a fact. So I honestly, I just hope that we can figure out a way to move forward, and I do feel that we'll have a better chance in the spring. One thing that we are doing, just to give you an idea, our initial bid included a basement in the building for storage and stuff like that. Just eliminating the basement and relocating the storage will save about $400,000 or $500,000. So right there with some of the things that we're going to do will help. Again, I was shocked. I went into Tony right away and I said, I can't do it. I mean, but I don't want to give up on it. I just think that when you drive up there someday, you're going to be really proud that you gave us a little extra time to do it. And I know that the district concludes in August, so that's something that we'll have to deal with. But we'll be well under construction at that time. I guess if we get to March 31st and for some reason we can't move forward, well, then the property would go back to the city, and then I don't know what would happen with it there. But I'd like to have that opportunity to really focus and complete what we got going. We spent a lot of time and money on it so far. And, any questions?
I have a question. Hey, John, I just need to ask you this, and we've known each other for I don't know how many decades. It's been a few. But there's a lot of projects going on around town. Why do you think this one is having problems? I mean, there's
I just like Midtown.
multifamily going up everywhere.
I know.
What do you think?
And you see a lot of apartments going up all over the place, and they all kind of look the same. You know, this is going to be something different, more high scale. I mean, I just think the look of it and what we're going to do there. I just like Midtown. When I first saw the opportunity there, I just thought this could be something special. And Brad, and that's why we bought the junk building.
Yeah.
So we could. I hate to sell that property and then see what would happen with the rest of it. I just don't think something would get done there that would look very nice. That's all.
No, I agree with you, and I understand the problems you're encountering. So I guess it's because probably of maybe the site and the type of construction and design that's driving the bid so high on this, can make it unaffordable. I'm just saying, you've got the issues on this when you see projects going up all over town. I just was curious.
There's a lot going on.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, they're all struggling to get the workers. I mean, they're just, getting one bid on only from one tradesman on everything is just not, it's not competitive. They can just throw a number out there and they say if they can get it, that's great. But I do feel that in the spring it'll be a little loosened up. And I've been talking to some other contractors too, so.
Traditionally, it's been better if you bid in late winter.
Pardon me?
I say traditionally, if you bid in late winter, it's been better, like you're planning to do. These aren't traditional times, but traditionally, that's been a good strategy, so hopefully it works.
The contractors I've talked to have said people are just so busy getting other things finished up right now, they're not very motivated they'll be more motivated to have things working in the spring.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Tony, what's the options if this didn't work March 31st? Is there time for another RFP, or would it just be, we need to sell it as excess property or something?
I don't think there'd be time for another RFP due to the district closing. I think this is a unique situation where I think the board has some options here. They can go ahead and agree to extend the DDA as requested by the developer, or they could not continue with the DDA and end the relationship and look to go ahead and surplus the property and sell it on the open market. That can be done probably in 3 to 4 months. Or the other option is to not do that, and you can transfer or gift the property to the city and let them use their abilities to do something with it in the future.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Tony, those options are also available if we wait till March 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. So you said 5 months ago you did the bid? You went out for bid 5 months ago?
Yeah.
Have you thought about doing it more recently in October or November, considering the bidding environment?
We had we did, and that was finished about a month ago, and that's where it came in 1.6 higher after doing our value engineering on it. Eliminated some things in the building that we thought could lower the price, but wow, we were shocked.
Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Widmeyer.
Go ahead, Steve.
I want this project to move forward. I just, at this time, I don't know that I feel comfortable enough and have enough information to be able to grant an extension that's that long. Can we, is time of the essence here? I know, I believe that Tony said the expiration date is the 22nd of October. I just feel that there needs to be a little bit more time done to study what the options are. And can we delay this decision until the next meeting, or is time of the essence that we have to do it today?
Wow, something's going to expire.
Go ahead, Danielle.
We would need to at least extend for a month because the extension is about to expire, as Tony said, on Friday. So we could extend for 1 month and then allow John to bring back further information if there's further information that you're seeking.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would be in favor. I would be in favor of right now just giving a 1 month extension so we all can have more of a conversation on really what's the best path forward. I would love to see this project go forward. We're looking at another 5-month extension. I'd like to have just a little bit more assurity that this thing is going to go forward. So I just like to see it maybe extended for 1 more month so we can just have some more conversations on the direction we want to go here.
Can I comment on that? And I'll take whatever you give me, obviously, but it's going to take probably a good month and a half to just meet with the architect and kind of redo what we feel we need to have redone, eliminating the basement, and then by in those 2 months, then you go back out for bid. So I'm just trying to be prudent. We're going to spend some more money to do this. I don't know if a month gives me enough time to really get that done.
John, what's the
But I'll
earliest,
take whatever you give me. So.
what's the earliest time you could have your bid back, do you believe? So if you wait and put the specs out on the end of December, how quickly could you have a new bid back?
Well, based on what's happened in the past, if we were able to get everything retooled, what we want to do, let's say we could get that done in a month or a month and a half. Usually they send the bids out again, a bid to the bid portal. And they're at, I think it's a 3-week time period, so probably the quickest time would be the end of February.
Okay.
I
Well,
want to get this done as quick as, I'm not trying to delay this, I want to get this done too.
well, I've really been wrestling with this, and would love to see this go. Actually, I would have liked, way before I ever got on the board, and they were talking about the workforce housing in Midtown. Actually, I would have liked that. I guess the neighbors didn't. I wonder now if we had it, we might wish we had. But that's water under the bridge. I've been very supportive of, taking another whack at this, but I guess at some point, I have to kind of draw back a little, and in my role, what is truly, I mean, I know that we look at a lot of the stuff through the financial prism, which is appropriate and all of that, but also when I look at, what's really best for, who we represent, which is frankly, all of the underlying districts who end up going into that increment that we get to do things with. And I can't totally ignore my City of Coeur d'Alene hat, and what's really the best in the big picture, and also, is there really reason to believe that somehow the workforce shortage in 4 or 5 months are going to get different? Wintertime bids are best, but is there really reason to think that something could substantially change by that point? And I guess to me, it's like, it might be time that we just have to say, everybody put their best heart and soul into this, wish they could have made, but I also have to look at it that a somewhat substantial chunk of property at that place in the city of Coeur d'Alene, with good thoroughfares on either side, all of that. When I look at, okay, if something happened specifically, if it ended up reverting to the city, it's tough to come by property. I mean, tough as school district, and wish that they had some open pieces of property to do different things. We need a downtown police substation, we need a number of things, and so I guess I'm really leaning towards, and just kind of putting this out for discussion, but I'm feeling like, I hate to say it, but I would really have to drag my feet at doing another extension, and for me, unless somebody gives me some other insight, I'm thinking that, for everybody that represent, it might be best if that ended up coming to the city to do the best and highest use for those taxpayers. And so, anyway, that's just my thought right now. I'm open to discussion, and I'd love it if somebody had, oh no, we got a great plan to make it go different, but that's my point of view. So.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Just hypothetically, Tony, if we didn't do an extension, do we have time to do an RFP now, or Danielle?
Danielle and I talked a great deal about this, and we would recommend that no, you do not do another RFP. Given the closure of the district, it would take probably 18 months to achieve, and it's just beyond the scope of our termination plan. So we would recommend against that.
I didn't think it would take that long. Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Chair. So here's, I guess we can kind of look at the alternatives here. One is that we extend to a certain point in time for John to continue to move forward on this plan, which I personally think is the best move on our part, because we've been looking at this for years now. It's not months, it's been years. We've been looking at the same issue and trying to figure out what to do in Midtown. The reuse appraisal on this was zero. So when the appraisal was done to see what the value of the land was, of what it would be able to be sold at to make this project viable, the land value came back at zero. So the other alternative that we're talking about is just doing an open sale. So I guess if the true reuse of appraisal on this is zero, what does that mean that the value of the land would be? I guess we would find out if we went to the open market, which is different than trying to build a project on it. Now that said, if we do that, if we just go to the open market and sell it, it can go to whatever value, whatever use it's going to be on. We've actually had some control over the use of this property from the time we've accumulated it. So the other alternative is that we don't extend, we sell the property at the open market, whoever buys it at that point in time then uses it for whatever use they choose to, and we say, go for it. Now, is that the best way for, as an agency, for us to handle this? I personally don't think so, particularly in the time frame we've been, as an agency, shepherding this through this process. So I guess I'm of the opinion that I think, we've got a good developer in John. We've got a project that is viable, that the Midtown group seems to be bought into. I don't think the best use is to just open it up for a sale and let whoever buys it develop it however they choose to. And I guess the third alternative is we don't do anything, we revert it back to the city, and maybe, like Dan said, maybe they use it for a police station or they use it for a city services, because once the city owns it, if I'm right, Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, it's much more difficult for the city to rid themselves of excess property than it is for us. So I think at this point in time, we have the ability to transmit this property to a buyer in a much easier way than, say, the city. Is that correct, Danielle?
The city can sell it surplus if they determine it to be surplus.
Okay, so
like
so they would go through the same process? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just back to Mick's question about timeline. So if you were to put the bid out, another bid, end of December, would you not get signals from contractors in end of January? You said 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. So by January 31st, presumably we'd have some signals of the viability, right?
I didn't quite hear your question.
If you put the bid out in December, and you mentioned it takes 3.5
Yeah.
weeks to get responses, by January 31st, you and we would have more information if it's a
Absolutely.
viable,
I'd hope so. It
which
would.
still is, between January and August, not a lot of time, but rather than kind of throw in the towel and throw the baby out with the bathwater, at least we get some interim sense of if you or any other developer is going to confront this, we can't sit on it forever.
Could we do a February 1st extension? Would that, I mean, that kind of gives a middle ground.
I would suggest just doing it immediately following the board meeting in January, like we have it set up for this one, so that John could come and present at the January board meeting, and then we'd have time to extend again if we wanted to, or we could, hopefully we'd be prepared to enter into the DDA at that point. But I don't know that, it doesn't get you much to extend to the end of January because you're not gonna be together to do any decision-making.
You have holidays, Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff. I mean, I'll do the best I can. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just sit back and.
So often, real estate deals they're kind of like poker. You know, you're trying to decide which hand to take, but it winds up like that so often. Now, I think Steve's suggestion was to do a 30-day extension, and you tell me, Steve, I think it was just so we could analyze this a little bit more before we make a decision, or? Are you there?
Yeah, I mean, we have to tighten up that time frame. You know, I sympathize with the situation that John has, but, you know, we've got to, as an agency, we've got to put some priority to this. I think that, you know, even going out to January to me is, you know, holidays and all those things, those are all, I hate to say it, but those are excuses, right? And we've given a lot of time, and we've extended this many times, and I'm in favor of extending this out, but I'm not in favor of extending it out more than just a couple of months. I just think that bright lights need to be put on this project. We've been very, very patient with it. I know there's a lot of reasons, but you know, we need to have this project go forward or not, and I think we need to make it a priority and push up that date. And so whether it's December or, you know, I could push it out to January. I'd rather see it give them a 2-month extension, but I could live to January too. But, you know, the point of the fact that, you know, it could go back to the city, and the city could determine what they would like to do with it. I mean, that's, as Mick said, that's certainly an option, but we just need to tighten up that time frame and make sure that this is a priority item for us.
I got another question. Oh, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Well, I had a thought.
Okay.
I put it that way. I appreciate Commissioner Widmeyer's comments and about the timing and everything else, but I believe I heard at the beginning of this conversation that it would be approximately a 6-month process to declare this property surplus and to sell it. 3 to 6?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. And so if we did give an extension into early 2022, we still have plenty of time to make that 3 to 4 month period before the district is closed to make a decision about whether we wanted to go surplus with this or if we wanted to revert it back to the city. And we may have more information about a lot of things by that point. I think rushing it and surplusing it now, unless there's a big market reason to do that and to, you know, and the value is going to change drastically between now and March, I personally don't agree with the idea that we need to just push this, make a decision and move forward. I would say, however, if we were going to create an extension, that the agreement be this is the last one. You know, basically, John, if you get what you want and we give you an extension to, you know, even if it's the end of February, if you can't make it work in February, we're done. and we can't keep going. And so, you know, maybe that puts some light and some pressure and some definitive mark to the end that also allows us time to consider what we want to do with the property should this not happen. But we've been so hard pressed to get even a good project, and we're all in favor of this project, and we like this project. I don't feel like it hurts us to allow the project to try to go forward with John's proposal, but I am not willing to go beyond the end of February or the end of March. I don't know what other people think, but, you know, we hit that point, and if you can't make it happen, John, we're gonna have to back out. And I think that's fair. I mean, that's more than ample opportunity, but that's also paying attention to the fact that we have an obligation with the district to figure out and be thoughtful about what to do with that property should the project not work.
It's the
So,
reality.
that's my 2 cents
We don't have a
on
lot
the
more
issue.
time.
Right.
Yeah. So, my question, if we were gonna go the surplus property route, we'd probably get, what, an MAI appraisal or a letter of market opinion, probably, and then set a minimum bid. If we didn't get a satisfactory bid, then we could list it with a broker.
Right, similar to what we did down on Park Drive.
Now, does the city have that option when, if the city of Coeur d'Alene owns it, to list it with a broker if they don't get a suitable bid?
They do have the same option
Okay.
if they don't reach the minimum bid in the, in the bidding process.
Okay. Well, we need affordable housing, but that's not gonna be affordable housing on that site. We've been there. And I like the project, but yeah, we're running out of time.
I do want
So
to
I've
point
heard-
out, can I point out one thing
Yeah.
too? If it was surplus and they sold the surplus, it's just that piece in the middle. We still have the junk building that we have a pretty cool plan to have that moving forward, so it'll be pretty cool. I mean, I'd hate to see that not go, having a chance. I appreciate your comments too. So, I mean, I'm not just sitting back on this.
So we need a motion?
No,
And I think
I
we're out-
understand.
yeah.
I mean, the project in its totality is a nice project. And the Midtown neighbors agreed on it, and we've been at this for a lot of years.
Go for it.
I make a motion that we accept the March extension. Steve, I know you're not in favor of this, but I kind of agree with Sarah. Let's move forward. Let's try to see if we can get this done. I move that we do the March extension that John's requesting, and at that point in time, that's our final extension.
Is that March 31st, or is that March 1st?
I would say the March board meeting.
March board meeting,
Can we do
yes.
the March board meeting?
Correct.
So that'd be, the March board meeting is the 16th, so I would suggest the 18th, just to give us time to
March 18th.
get something else signed if we needed to. For that.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, if that's, I don't, does somebody second that motion?
No.
No,
I'll second it.
Okay, so I guess my point is that for me, that's too long. You know, I could support going to January, I can't support going to March. I just think there needs to be some priority put on the project. That's my 2 cents worth. So I can't support March 31st, I could support January, so I know how it works. We just vote and see how it flies.
I just wanted to have a discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Brad?
So I would vote against this. I like John, I've known him forever, he's a good guy, and John's put a lot of time and money into this project, and it's a good project, but I just think that's a little bit too long. That's the only reason I'd vote against it, because of the time frame we've got coming down on us.
You want to amend the
Do you want to
motion?
amend? Yeah, do you want to amend it?
And shorten the time frame.
Well, I'm thinking the end of January to give us a little bit of time to figure out what we can do with this if it doesn't work. Hopefully they could fast track this and get some bids and figure out if it'll work by then.
It sounds
me
like
know
you
what
and
you
Steve are
think.
both thinking January. When's the January board meeting, Danielle?
We would shoot for January 21st would be the date. Our board meeting's on the 19th.
Now, there may be a majority that supports March 31st. I mean,
Or we could
we're all
expect-
trying to do the best we can here, and we have our own opinions, and this isn't just cut and dry, so I may get out and voted on that, but that's just my feeling, you know. I appreciate everything that's been put into the project. We're just kind of running out of time here.
Do you think that's feasible, end of January?
I'll appreciate whatever you can give me. I'll do the best I can, yeah.
What information, new information would you get between January 21st and March? I mean, if you do the kind of redesign architecturally, put it out for bid, would you just keep bidding it every month? Or if we accelerate the timeline for that, what comes in January is basically what you have to work with, right? So I don't understand the value of 6 extra weeks if the information that we'll get, that we would make a decision with you, would come in by the end of January.
I'll do I want to get done as quick as I can. I'll do the best I can. I mean, and I'll come back and report to you every month, let you know what's going on if you want to, if that would be valuable to you. I think that'd be nice if we could get somewhere in February, but I'll take whatever you give me. I mean, I'm at your mercy.
Did you make a motion and amend it, Brad? Did you amend it?
No, I just gave you my opinion. You've got a motion and a second on the floor. And maybe there's a majority that would support that. I don't know. We're just discussing it here.
I thought there was
It's a little
conversation
too
about
long
an
for me.
amended motion.
Pardon?
I thought there was conversation about an amended motion. I think Commissioner Arman offered up for amendment.
There's a motion and a second on the floor, and I asked if somebody wanted to amend it. Nobody has.
Nobody has?
So you're asking for an amendment?
If you choose.
Or take this one.
Okay, I'll just make a motion to amend it to what date in January?
21st.
21st?
January 21st.
January 21st.
This is Steve, I'll second that.
Have we
You guys
had
are
enough
gonna-
discussion?
I have one more question. Is there a reason why we couldn't do January 31st and have a special meeting
That's
just
what I
on
was
this?
thinking, yeah.
That buys the developer
10 days.
an extra 10 days during the kind of holiday interruption, and then that's a full month to get as much information as possible. But it doesn't push us into February or March.
You certainly, a special meeting anytime with 24 hours notice. And also, you could get a report in January and say, okay, we're moving forward with this. Let's get the DDA signed by January 31. So, I mean, you could condition it on that, just that preparation, or, that we would have the DDA signed by whatever expiration date you set, and then we would have to call a special meeting for you guys to approve that.
So John, is the holdup with your meeting with the architect and other people in the interim to get that bid together, or what would be the holdup?
I'm hoping that in the next month and a half, we'll be able to get what we need to have done to have it rebid. So I don't want to make excuses either, but, holidays and Christmas and stuff, I mean, people kind of put things off. So, I mean, I guess worst case, I come back on the 21st, and I give you what I have you, and we're saying we can move forward, we can't, or we need a couple more weeks to get these, I don't know.
Yeah, you could sure do that.
Can I interrupt?
If you put
So
your bid out
Tony
on the
just
1st of
pointed out.
January.
Sorry, Mick.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, Tony just pointed out to me that I misspoke. I've got too many of these floating around in my mind. So we've signed the DDA. It's closing that we're waiting on. So we could say closing to close on the property by January 31. And we would maybe not even have to have a special meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Mick?
So if you put your bid out on the first week of January, how quickly could you have bids back?
Probably, well, they say usually it's 3 weeks.
How many?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? So we could have them back by the end of the month?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second for the 21st of January.
January 31st. I thought.
I'll amend my motion for amendment to the 31st of January.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor for January 31st, 2022? Say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Just to clarify, to close by January 31st?
Closed by the 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Now, do we need another vote? Because Mick has a motion to do an extension.
I'll accept the amendment.
Okay, so we don't need another vote then now that we amended it to the 31st of January? Okay, all right.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, this is Steve again.
Yep.
I had a question for Danielle. So let's say we go through this, we close on January 31st, and then performance doesn't happen after that date. What are either the agency's options or the city's options?
So, I mean, the property would be transferred to the Midtown Ventures LLC upon closing, and the DDA does still govern in terms of what is constructed and on what timeline, and there are remedies in the DDA that provide us with the ability to take the property back, although not in a very glamorous or non-litigated way. There are remedies in there that would allow us to try and take it back through a judicial process. And then whoever it would be the agency that would probably be doing that as part of the closing down plan for the district, and then they would have to transfer it to the city at that point.
All right, thank you.
Any more comments on that one?
If Armageddon happened like that, then you'd have to hope with a threat of litigation hanging over Midtown Ventures, there'd probably be some sort of a negotiated settlement where the land might get deeded back to Ignite, and it'd get worked out without litigation, hopefully. Nothing's guaranteed, but now hopefully, ideally, the best thing is the project gets built if he gets bids that are suitable and
No, we're definitely
moves
all
ahead.
we're for the project, for
But
sure.
you do always have to think of the worst case, that's true.
Thank you.
So there are remedies.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John, good luck.
Actually, what I was gonna say, get her
Appreciate all
done.
your
Get her
work.
done.
Run.
Thanks, John.
I think you have some meetings to go to.
Don't hang out here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item under my report is the Atlas Project, request for proposals for Area 5A and Area 13. Jeff, if you could pop up that one PDF file I have on the screen, please. Thank you. We have a depiction on the screen showing kind of Area 5A and Area 13 as they kind of lay out on the site. And then this is just a kind of a closer view of the project site, showing the areas in green, which are the two areas that are in this RFP, as well as the areas kind of shaded in yellow are the areas that are currently either have been sold or under contract and negotiation through the DDA process. And the areas in white are the areas that are available for future RFPs. So just briefly, areas 5A and 13 represent critical land in the Atlas waterfront development adjacent to the public park and at the heart of what will likely be the most prominent intersection in the neighborhood. As such, the agency intends to prioritize high-density mixed-use proposals from development teams, namely condominium, for-sale product, or hotel, along with attractive, vibrant ground floor retail. Areas 5A and 13 can be offered on individually or separately, but unified proposals involving both areas will be favored during the selection process for ease of execution and likelihood for a better, more harmonious design in this critical location in the neighborhood. Our plan that I shared with you initially was to have the proposals for this RFP back by Friday, December 3rd, but after consulting with our team, we had decided to push that out to December 17th to give extra time to the development community to really give us some fine proposals. So with that due date, we would probably look to get the RFP committee together second week of January, and have a recommendation to the board at the January board meeting. Happy to answer any questions you might have on the RFP.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for all the questions today. Hey, Tony, could you just refresh me on how we put this out to the development community? Is there ever any signage on the property? Have we done any of that?
So we don't have signage on the property. What we do is we have to put a public notice in the paper for 30 days, letting them know that this RFP is out there. And then our consultant team, mainly the Heartland Consulting Group, has a very broad-based distribution list where these RFPs go out to past development teams and regional development teams. Like we found with the last go around, we got a national builder to give a proposal. The Toll Brothers came in. So there's a lot of people watching this project area, and so we're very hopeful and confident that we'll have a lot of eyes on this offering.
Okay. So if you feel like our bases are pretty well covered, I guess it's been working okay.
I think so.
Yeah. Nowhere else you can think of to advertise or?
Always open to suggestions.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Tony, I have a question for you. So I was reading through the proposal, and obviously, if you look at the location, the park is right to the east of 13. Would a developer have any opportunity to use that park area for outside seating or spillover or those types of things? You oftentimes see that in other locations where, they'll have, the seating outside the establishment and maybe it spills out into the green space. Has that been discussed at all?
That has not been discussed, but I would say that, any overture like that would be looked at and evaluated to see kind of what the value proposition is, if it makes sense, and if it really adds value to the overall project. I don't think we would decline it just, out of the gate. So I think we would consider those type of proposals.
I mean, it's a beautiful park area right there on the water, and it sure gives the opportunity to have a little bigger footprint, particularly in the summer.
The only issue with that is that we don't own the park. We'd have to partner with our friends at the city to see if they would allow such a use.
Okay.
Yeah, would have to ask Hillary, I'm sorry.
Any further questions or discussion?
So what I'd be looking for is just a motion to approve the Atlas Project RFP for areas 5A and 13 and directing me to go ahead and release it with a due date of, proposals due by December 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. You hear all that, Steve?
I got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Exciting to see what comes
Thank
back.
you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have an Atlas Project update with Mr. Phil Boyd.
Thank you, Chairman Hoskins and board members. Jeff, could I get my presentation up? Perfect. Thank you. Well, there's a lot of content, but only a few agenda items. So I'll go through the phase 1 update, talk a little bit about some items that fall in development management, and then the big ticket item that you guys have an exhaustive memo on, which I apologize to getting to you late, but Tommy LaRiviere, who is here in the audience tonight, if you guys want to ask him any questions, and I were working late on Monday and Tuesday, working through some things. And as you saw in the memo, there's still some things we're working through. Phase 1 update. I thought I'd throw this on the picture to give you guys a little bit more orientation. You know where you're at here. The river, Southeast Way is up here. I wanted to throw this up just to give you kind of a headed into winter look at what's happening here. The site's still blocked up here at Southeast Way, so there's no public access into the site. LaRiviere is working on finishing the concrete intersections here and here for sure by the end of October, and potentially the one down here at the bottom of the screen, but that's not critical for fire circulation if a CO is secured for one of these homes during the wintertime. So if a CO comes along for one of these homes, the master developer, you, are going to be required to turn the streets over to the city so they can provide access to that site. And so we've been working with Kenny Gabriel's crew, Chief Gabriel's crew, on figuring out what that fire loop is, and so you can see it runs through here. This section of road currently is not paved. This section of road is also not paved, primarily because there's going to be construction up here in Area 10 starting, and construction in here starting in the spring. So the more things we put out for the contractors to destroy, the more challenges we have when we go, the city has to go through and do the COs there, because the city goes through, and if there's destroyed sidewalk in front of their home, the city makes that contractor fix it. So we're trying to minimize the areas of damage. But to complete that loop through here on a surface that they can pave, we're gonna go in there and just put in a temporary asphalt patch in there that will get ripped out in the spring and put down when we do the rest of this road here. This curb and base rock will go in now before the end of the year, and those are the primary points that will be finished, and we'll let the thing winter over. Currently, as these homes started getting built up like this, the fire department called and said, we're now getting to the point where we're concerned that there's enough combustibles out there that we need our own access into the site that will be plowed and maintained. So La Riviere offered to take essentially Atlas Road and went in there, bladed it, prepped it. We put some delineators on there. City has fire department has an access to it. So if something happens down here, Tommy's crew is going to maintain this with a plowed road in here through the winter, so the fire department could get in there and do that. Any questions on that one? Okay. Just on the update on the kind of the development management side of things, this is the same image Tony just tossed up there. Currently, we're working a lot with the Butlers, who own or in the process of acquiring Area 8 and Area 5B. If you might recall that they decided to take the option to put an alley through here, which required a significant amount of rework. We're looking at their house designs and trying to reincorporate them in a way that fits in the site. We're also working a lot through their architecture to make sure it complies with the architectural standards. And remember, there's some areas 1, 2, 6, 10, and 12 that are not subject to the architectural standards, but the rest of the sites are. And so it's important that we work through those and make sure that they're followed both in Area 8 and, well, all the areas. Toll Brothers, Tony and I have joked about this, that they've got their foot on the gas. And so they're pushing, asking questions, and, you know, the email just ding, 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 which is great. And we're keeping up with them and being very responsive so we can keep them moving along. So it's a very active in that area. And then, as Tony said, these two are the next ones that will be moving forward in the RFP. I mentioned last month that because of the uniqueness of the site and some of the things we developed when we had Area 13 out in a prior RFP, we wanted to bring those ideas forward and make sure that the potential people that are going to bid on this or propose on it understood those. And you guys saw these in the RFP if you look through the draft copy. But this is some of the imagery that's in there to try to stimulate their creativity and what we would hope to see there. And you can see these actually represent what's anticipated. So this is the Toll Brother area here, and this is literally what they're proposing in that area. These are some ideas that we had developed early on and out of the last time we had the Area 13 out for RFP. So again, those ideas are try to take the value that's been created up to this point and pass it on to the next person that's potentially proposing on this, so they understand some of the opportunities. Any questions on that?
I'm just curious as to, and I know we've talked about this as far as timing of the infrastructure development and timing of house and people, or in the developer coming in. We seem to be flowing pretty well. I just want to reaffirm that that's still occurring.
Yeah, that's a good question about how far are we on public infrastructure and when are people moving into the site and where that's occurring. So as I mentioned, I'll go back to this one here. You can see the houses are going vertical here. Our intention is always to be gone from the area once the first person moves in. There's no gigantic pressure currently in this area for us to get out of the way because we'll be finished before you can see that we're already finished in the areas people might move in. There's no homes that are actually going to be finished that are accessed off of here. In the future phases, the first thing we'll do out of the spring is pave Atlas Road through here. once that infrastructure is completed. We're waiting on Toll Brothers' final lot layout so we can put in water and sewer services through there. We're also waiting to see what happens here, because we don't want to obviously pave that road until we know what the winning proposal is in that area. So once we knew those two things, Tommy's crew will get in there, finish that work, and then we'll move up into these areas and trying to always stay ahead.
So would that hold up Toll Brothers, considering that we're just going out to RFP for 5A and 13?
No, because if push came to shove, what we would do is we would pave to this point. We don't really want to do that because it messes up our economics, not in a substantial way, a couple $1,000s to remobilize a paving crew in there, but you always got to watch the couple $1,000s because they add up to big tens of thousands of dollars. So our objective would be to pave that entire stretch from Suzanne over to Veneer. Okay. So this is the meat and potatoes part of the presentation tonight. So the board, we had a meeting on this previously, and so you guys are pretty familiar with this, but just for completeness, I'll cover it again. The phase 2 area that we're talking about in here is this infrastructure area. This is the summary of contracts that are up for your consideration. So the big one, phase 2, 5.1 million, and I'll show you some slides on this in a second. The Area 12 shared use path, the entry monuments, you guys are all familiar with these things. We had talked about the on-site manager and maintenance, and you guys read in my memo, Tommy put some stuff together. And I think Commissioner Metz and I had some discussions about this at the end of the last meeting, or maybe it was during the meeting. I don't know if the scope is perfectly clear yet. And that's why when I put it in the memo, I thought, we're not under any gigantic time frame here. I'm pushing on that, so I thought the board might want to think about that and offer some suggestions either here or offline through Tony, if there was anything that you thought might be different in that scope of work. Additionally, the cost that we had kind of thrown up on the screen at the special board meeting, I think I had $65,000 in there, and it's quite a bit more than that if we do it on a month, an entire year basis. Our contracts for the phase 2 work are here. You'll see that these two numbers, both this number and our construction phase services number, came down from what I showed you at the special board meeting, and that's because we pulled out the irrigation and landscaping. And that's another one of those items that's just not ripe enough, in my opinion, to bring you guys. I think we need to bundle them in phase 1 and phase 2, and Tommy and I need to get through those negotiations so we can bring them forward in one big package. Because it's a substantial effort and it's a substantial cost to go in and landscape all those streets and put in an irrigation system for them. So that's why if you notice, these numbers are lower than what they were presented before. We talked about that word's not supposed to be in there, the concept grading options in there, and then the Avista contracts that'll be coming forward as well. So the grand total is $6.479 million, which is obviously lower than what we looked at before. This is just an excerpt out of the plan, again, trying to depict to you where we're going to be doing work. So you can see it's all those areas, but nothing up in phase 3. It does include pushing Mount Hink kind of into a flatter configuration, processing some of the material, excavating pit 2 that's underneath there, pit 1 that's over here. This is the shared use path. So you'll have to reorient yourself. I had to put north to the right here. So sorry, Celtice Way is moving up and down, so east and west, that's atypical. This is Atlas Road coming into the site, Area 10 over here. This is actually the Area 12 configuration. You can see Lance Douglas's garages kind of ghosted in over here. And the shared use path would come down through here. And the reason it has this loop in it is to get down, there's quite a bit of grade here. And then it would run along the property line here and end up right here. We're still working on trying to get an easement on his property. And so while you may award this contract tonight, no work would start until we have an easement in our hand. And if you decide to make a contingency on the motion, if you head down that direction, we can certainly do that. But we're working on it. just to refresh the board's memory, one of the things that this opportunity presented, it not just providing a safer route for people to get from point A to point B, because it used to be along here. So you can imagine you're riding with your kids, you come to here, you have a driveway to cross, you come to here, you have another driveway to cross, and then you finally get to the park. So this creates that safety situation, but it also gave opportunity to put diagonal parking in here. And parking, as we know in that neighborhood, is at a premium, or will be at a premium. And we all know that because the park is going to be a draw, and people are going to park on the street instead of over at the parking lot. So that's the other product of the shared use path that's a benefit. And then the last item here is the entry monuments. And Tommy's been doing a lot of value engineering on this, going through the design drawings, working with the architect and finding opportunities. Can we change this? Can we do that? Just to try to value engineer these down to a lower price. They're still higher, as I noted out in the memo, than what Dell originally estimated to you. And some of that's part of just the escalation that we see in general, because there's quite a bit of steel in here and rebar. And both of those things are have been escalated since Dell originally estimated it. So there is the summary. I'm glad to answer any questions the board might have, and I don't know how the motions would go if you make any motions, but there is the summary for the board's consideration.
So as the board considers this, you can do an individual motion on each contract that has been presented, or you can just use this summary table and make one motion if you favor all of them that's been presented. So it's up to the board to choose how you'd like to go through that.
Do you have a timeline on the irrigation contract? Is it going to be next month, or and how far out can you defer it before you get to critical time?
We're close, and I would anticipate that I'll be back here in November with a successful proposal. Because remember, the alternative for Ignite is you could continue to negotiate with La Riviere, and you guys, we're negotiating on your behalf. We're estimating what we think the work is worth, and based on Del Hatch's experience primarily, and also pricing we've seen prior to this that we've paid in phase 0, which was a bid project initially with La Riviere. So we think where we know where we're at. Part of the challenge for La Riviere, these are the things that we have mitigated in the current phase 2 contract, is he is trying to protect himself from escalation. And so what Tommy and I have been working through a lot is, are there opportunities where we can pull that risk out and essentially share it with him? And you saw that in the current proposal. So my objective, Commissioner Arman, would be to come back in November with a proposal in hand, because part of what we want to do is we want to be the first ones. We want La Riviere to be the first one to buy plants in mass quantities now. We also want him to buy all the pipe and all the fittings now, because we have plenty of areas to stockpile it. You guys are not, we pay for material, what's called MOH, materials on hand. So the materials show up, we put a fence around them, we pay them for them, we inventory everything that comes in. And so there's some advantages for the way that you can contract to them with, some other folks may not be able to, that are financed by banks and whatnot. But that would be our objective, is to be back in November.
Okay.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Brad.
If we buy all these trees now, I understand that part. Are we going to have any issues with freeze protection over the winter, or tree loss?
And Tommy can probably speak more to
Would
this.
the delivery not be till later?
Yeah, he would yeah, come on. Yeah, I'll let you answer that question, how the purchase would be made.
Pleasure to meet everybody. I'm Tom LaRiviere. I know I haven't had a chance to meet everybody yet, but pleasure to finally be here with you guys. So on the freeze protection stuff, so we have a couple of different options. So we can either leave them in the inventory in the warehouse or in the farm where we buy these things from, which is generally off the Oregon coast, which they don't have a lot of freeze issues in those areas. We can also bring into our in-house nurseries that we have here, in the local area. And what we'll do is we'll time that on dormancy. So we can bring those in during a dormancy effect and then house those here and protect those trees. The benefit obviously is the cost control, right? So the sooner, the better, the more bulk we do, we can do a cost control. We are still liable at the end of the day for giving you a live product. So at the issue that some of this stuff dies off, we're going to replace it for you no matter what. So if we choose to take that risk and bring those in too early or whatever, that judgment, the board or the Ignite is not at any risk, because we will warranty those trees at no matter what.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. English.
Sure. Just on that shared use, I think back to Phil, on the shared use path, anything we can do to, I mean, I think that's a high priority. Anytime we can avoid crossing the path with driveways, streets, whatever, I think that's worth whatever effort and things, and I'm still wish we could have done something different on Suzanne, but that's water under the bridge. And but when you mention still have to negotiate right away on, I mean, who and what, and what's the risk on that?
This line right here represents the property line between Ignite's property and River's Edge property. Mike Ridley we've been working with Mike to he had negotiated an agreement in principle, we'll call, with Lance Douglas, who owns River's Edge, and he said, yes.
Well, I thought we were already there, but we're not.
No, we're not there.
Okay.
And so he said, yes, we're good there, but I want to see the engineered plans, because he has these garages here, there's some drainage issues, and he's been very accommodating. He's not, he's been, let's have our engineers talk. So we've been working with his engineer. We've been, without getting into too many details, there's quite a bit of complexity down here. We had to move our trail to line up with where he wanted his trail. On the other side, there's some complexities over here. And we've been going back and forth on those. You can't get to an easement document until you have the technical details worked out. So we're getting the technical details worked out. The last one we just worked on today, we're going to need a little bit of a slope easement over here. So now that we have that, we'll put those into an exhibit to give to Mike Ridley, who will put the easement language with it and carry that water over to Lance Douglas.
Okay.
And so hopefully, and next month I'll report that there's an easement in hand.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And this is regarding, and it might be for Tommy, but regarding the on-site management. We had discussed possibly a part-time person on that. So if you guys want to explain how the pricing was structured.
So the pricing was structured based on the lower number is a 40-hour week full-time person to manage the site. The accelerated price that Phil has presented is what we have tended to see on the site as we've been down there is with overtime involved, Saturdays and those types of things, because the builders are working at a rapid pace to try to get the product out as fast as they can. So we've been seeing a 6 to 6 days a week. So what we've seen on site personally is that amount of hours being burned up. So we gave kind of a fluctuation of, potentially what the board might want, either a full-time person or actually somebody really full-time on the site when anybody is on site. We're more than willing to look at it as a part-time deal. We're more than willing to look at it as a couple of day a week thing. We just want to try to attempt to get some control and some teeth in what's kind of going on the site to try to manage not only the risk for everybody, but also just the damage and the different stuff that's going on.
It's a good paying job.
Phil, when's the first CEO, do you think, going to be pulled on that? How soon?
We haven't heard officially, but we still think that it may not be this winter. There's some, you can speculate that there's some motivation that the builder down there doesn't want to have a CO, because as soon as the CO occurs, the streets open up and they're publicly accessible, and they won't be able to park their cars in it and do things that they're doing in it now. So I don't know that I have no information that they're holding it up, but you can understand why they might choose to do that. So we have not heard.
They're going up pretty quick.
They are, yeah.
So you're not sure if somebody wants to be home for Christmas?
No, we haven't heard that. And I would be surprised if that happens, because I think the experiences you hear John talking about are systemic in the industry currently.
Tony, in your email that you sent out, you're something about the on-site management. What was the timing on that in your email?
The timing for on-site management, it's fluid. Like I think Phil and Tommy mentioned, it's not critical at this time, so we've got some time to think through this, but we just kind of wanted to daylight the issue and identify the need that it is going to be a need, and we need to kind of prepare for it and kind of get it lined up.
Can you go to that slide that shows the money on that one there? So then for motions, then we at least need to get the top 3 there, bulleted items. That right there at least.
No, we need the next 2 also.
And the next 2, but not necessarily the.
As I mentioned, if the board wants to just make it easy on themselves, you could just use that table and just say that you make a motion to, approve the not to exceed values that you see on that table for those line elements that have values associated with them. Perfect. I mean, or you can go individually, your call.
So the numbers up there, the 9,100 to 12,500 for the on-site manager, is that the $200 per hour at that rate, or what?
That is, yeah. I think it's $200 an hour for the 9,100, and I think it's like $190 for the higher number, if my math was right. And plus vehicles, there's vehicle use in there.
I guess a lot of us were kind of curious how it wound up at $200 an hour.
I don't think the math works out to that way unless I've screwed it up somehow.
You could almost hire a lawyer for $200
Yeah,
an hour.
I think the rate that the person's rate is $48 an hour. So if you take $48 an hour times 160 hours a month and add in the $1,100 for the job trailer and the job vehicle, that should get you to the 9,100 in here, or close to that 9,100.
So the rate didn't change, just the number of hours?
Correct, and I think
to accelerate the coverage.
And part of, it's a little bit of a challenge to know, as Tommy mentioned, what are we trying to control on the site? And if we want our guy to go there and open up the gate and let all the contractors go through and watch them go through and see Joe went in, Sam went in, Bill went in. We know who's coming into the site, goes down, monitors all day long, kind of does miscellaneous thing there, and is there to close the gate and go down and tell the guys, get out because the gate's getting closed, and once the gate's closed, you're locked in here. Are we at that point? We may not be out at that point right now, but by the time you get 6 other builders in here, and each who have 4 different subcontractors, it's going to be an absolute zoo. This is one contractor, and they're still running into each other down there, and they're spread out all over the place. They've got stuff stockpiled on Area 8, and they've got trash blowing into the park. So Tommy's guys just currently, he's just been voluntarily going into the park, picking up Tyvek and bringing debris over. There's stormwater issues where they run over Tommy's silt fence, and so their stormwater is now running off the site. And you go over and, his superintendent, who's got another job, mentions it to the folks over here and gets a variety of colorful responses on their responsibility to deal with that. And so, right now it's just here, but you can imagine that same thing replicated across the site, and it's going to become a challenge.
Well, I understand that. Like I mentioned the other day, it's a little unique because we're not one. This isn't being done by one contractor. We're selling this to multiple contractors, so you got conflicts in there. But the opening and the closing the gate, that's almost getting more into security. Do we need that kind of security? Or are we looking for for this person that's basically an ombudsman that's going to go around and see if anyone's violating anyone else's space? And
Aren't we looking for you to come back to us in November with the job description?
Well, there was a little bit of one in the memo that I sent, but I think Commissioner Jordan just identified part of what I was hoping the board would kind of come up with. Is you just sitting here thinking about it, you're right. What we could do is Tommy could have a sub that is the security people that Bill Greenwood already probably has on site. And that person could open the gate at 6 a.m. and another one of their staff could close it at 6. Tommy's person could show up at 9 and leave at 3. And, we could manage it that way. And then as the effort starts to grow, as more contractors come on site, somebody else can lock and unlock the gate as that security person. And maybe that security person tours the site, once or twice a week, also during the night.
well, I guess what I'm wondering, do we need a gate locked and unlocked? I mean, the subs will work Sundays, they'll work no telling when. I'll see subs at job sites working on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
And that could be one of the things we leave out if you want. The challenge is now the site is uncontrolled because everybody has a key to it. And when I think I mentioned this at the last board meeting, when the last sub leaves, he doesn't shut the gate. We don't know who the last one was. And then you go on the weekend and the teenagers are circled up down there drinking beer with a bonfire.
But Phil, what happens when the first CO is pulled and you now have to have
We'll end up, yeah, we'll end
outlets
up.
open?
Yeah, so
So now it's a wide open street.
it is.
And if that's 2 months from now, it's a moot point.
Yeah, well, except there's still going to be,
There's still got to be on-site management, but
Yeah.
you're not going to be controlling
Correct.
egress and ingress.
yeah, good point. We'll still control it over here. Once this is open, we're going to still block these off over
Yeah,
here.
but everybody's going to come in off Saltese.
Yes, they'll come into here, but they won't be able to get into this part of the site.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we need this. It just seems cumbersome having someone lock and unlock the gate
That's a fair
however
observation.
many days a week
Yeah.
this is. I just hadn't seen that in the development.
Yeah, no, that's a fair observation.
I mean, I've seen it on individual construction sites where they have temporary fence and lock it and unlock
Yeah.
it, but in a subdivision, I haven't really seen that. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It seems awful cumbersome.
But the money you're looking for action tonight has nothing to do with
Correct.
those dollars aren't in that spreadsheet.
Correct. Yeah.
Sure they were,
We'll
Commissioner English.
defer that with the job.
They're just
no
pulled out
value
to the
associated
site
in
here. Yeah.
Go ahead,
okay.
Dan.
Well, just as a reminder, and I'm not sure what the, complete relevance, but remember back when we sold just the handful of lots down in the fort grounds, and somebody got to be the first one or two to move in. And then there was still all kinds of stuff going on, and this is going to be magnified. So I think we do have to, kind of look ahead and anticipate there's some logistical and other problems. Now, granted, all of it, will be temporary. At some point we'll be past that, but there might be some headaches. And so I can see both for keeping things smooth and, like you say, for the security. There's a lot at risk for a lot of people there, and just the kind of the peace and whatever. So, yeah, I think we do have to be mindful of trying to manage this right and put some, resources into that. I mean, with this huge of a project, we want to get to a nice, tidy ending. So
I will make a motion to accept the contracts for board consideration table up to the 6.479775 with the deferment of the on-site manager to see a job description by next month.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further
Sounds
discussion? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So when do the signs go up?
You'll notice in the memo, there was some milestones in there that have a very aggressive liquidated damage provision in there. I mentioned to Tony, as we were working through this, Tommy and I, and of course, he and I went back and forth on what the appropriateness of that was. The board has expressed some frustration in the past of why things didn't move along as quickly as they should have. And so, some of that is the contractor's current environment, it's just busy all over the place. Some of it is weather and supplies and whatnot. But there are interim milestones in there with a very aggressive liquidated damages provisions. So it forces the contractor to work very aggressively. And if there is going to be a delay, they have to ask early and come here with their hat in their hand and explain to the board, why do we need this, or I'll be here. And so one of the things you'll see come out of this at the next month is we'll have a much more detailed schedule that has all those entry monument signs in them. There are some supply chain issues with some of this exotic coatings
Always.
here. Yeah, and which Tommy's already talked about them. He said, look, I can build these, but it's not like I can go buy that powder coating next week. It's going to take months to get some of that stuff. But you'll see a more detailed schedule about that.
We don't want them ruined before the end of the development too.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks,
All I have,
Bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Tony. Next up is board commissioner comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I would just
George?
say, real quick, I appreciate Tommy coming down and meeting with us tonight. Thanks for your time. It's nice to meet you.
Well, he's seen us give Mr. Butler those extensions, and now all of a sudden Phil's talking about we need to toughen up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, no comments, and I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session.
I will make a motion to enter into executive session per Idaho Code Section 74-206 subsection 1B to consider the evaluation of the Ignite CDA Executive Director.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, roll
Roll
call.
call, please.
Mandel?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Arman?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes. Jeff, that's a wrap. Thanks, Hillary, for coming down.